Bonjour and welcome to Tarmac. I'm Dave.
I'm Matthew, and this little petite SUV behind us is none other than the new Citroen C3 Aircross.
That's right, it's the most customizable and comfy Citroen actually in the class. So come, let's take a look at this. Okay, so the Citroen C3 Aircross was actually first to hit the roads in 2016. So of course, a few years later, now it's time for the facelift, and much of the facelift is actually done around the face. So it's still got the DRLs up the top here, but there's a new grille. The bumper's more extended and sort of more rugged as far as there, and also when you come down the bottom here, there's more additional trim that's basically body colored, and you can actually match that. There's a variety of different colors which I'll go through in a minute, but very customizable trim, rugged face, and like I said, really cool from there. And also the eco lights, which I'll show you now. These are eco LEDs and they are follow you home, so you can just wander off and switch them off when you're ready. Let's look around the side. The dimensions remain the same, 4.2 meters long, 1.8 meters wide and 1.6 and change tall. And that includes these lovely roof rails. The big differences are the 17-inch wheels. These are now diamond cut, but they're origami. Why they're origami, I don't know, and not French words like croissant, I don't know, but there you go. The other thing is the colors and customizable bits about it. You can basically have two different roof colors, four different sort of body colors as far as these goes, the trim colors, and also there's 7 different actual body colors. This one is the khaki gray. Again, don't get me started on colors. The other good thing is this back quarter glass here, and that's again got this trim, different colored trim. This one is obviously white. For those of you that like the rear end of the old model, anyway, you're in luck because virtually nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed are the 3D rear lights here are just a slight bit darker, but that's it. The boot space is still 410 litres and in 2 levels, so you can actually flick it up from there. But other than that, nothing's changed. Also, nothing's changed under the bonnet, but let's go there anyway. A 1.2 litre 3-cylinder PureTech 110. Basically what it gives you is 81 kilowatts of power, 205 newton meters of torque. It's not big, but it is okay, it's substantial. It's all married to a 6-speed automatic gearbox, which basically will get you from 0 to 100 in just over 10 seconds. So as long as you're not in a hurry, you will get there. It sips fuel at 7.3 litres per 100 kilometres, and through the exhaust kicks out 166 grams per kilometre of CO2. So it's basically neutral when it comes to New Zealand sort of emissions fee and stuff like that, which is all right. Speaking of things that are quite neutral, Matthew's inside and he'll show you what's going on in there.
I'm not sure what Dave was going on about me being neutral, because anybody who knows me knows that I stand for something. Just like this car, actually. And it's one of those things where you either like it or you don't. And I've got to say, I actually quite like it. It's funky and sort of everything you'd expect from a French car, but livable in the same way. So the styling, for example, of the dashboard, it's really interesting. All the air conditioning vents have these funky shapes to them. You've got this sort of cloth panel on the top, which just breaks up the sea of black plastic and looks good too. You've got this very strange looking rubbery thing over here with all these little grips. I'm not sure what goes there, but something does, and whatever goes there will stick as well. In terms of practicalities, well, there's plenty of space around the cabin as well. You know, the door pockets, the glove box, and storage in here can actually fit 2 coffee cups, which is a good start there. And while you're getting comfortable, you'll be really happy to know that these seats are Citroen's comfort seats as standard, and they come with that extra 15 millimeters of foam padding, which really sort of separates you from the road, and in true Citroen fashion makes it, you can drive over a field of eggshells with mud in your car, or is it the other way around? Anyway, another quirky thing about this car is not just the soft seats But down the middle, when you look at the gear stick, it's got a very interesting sort of pattern to it, which does take a bit of getting used to, but we'll talk about that later. That's sort of the only real niggle I have with this interior, frankly. Apart from that, it's really well designed and comfortable. There's something special to be said about those seats, as again I'll tell you on the drive. But before I ramble on, let's take a quick look at the infotainment screen. This infotainment screen here has been increased up to 9 inches, and as you can see, it also has the air conditioning controls on there, which are a little bit annoying because you have to dive in to change things, but there is a nice shortcut button over there to help with that. Speaking of shortcuts, press the home button and you're shown up there with all the bits and pieces that the screen has to offer. So obviously your radio and navigation, phone controls. It has actually got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well, so really good features there. And when you go into a vehicle, you can actually turn on and off some of the safety features like the blind spot monitoring, parking sensors, and stuff like that. So it will allow you to take control of the car as manually as possible if you like, without being annoying. So I do like that about this Citroen. The screen itself has a nice sort of phone layout to it as well. As you can see, an information bar at the top there. And all the vitals are really easy to access, so it has got a nice interface to it. Speaking of something else that looks pleasing, let's take a quick look at the dashboard. The gauges are really neatly laid out. Everything's simple there. You've got your speed on the right, rev counter on the left, and your little fuel and temperature in the middle. The really interesting thing about this setup here is not actually this screen in the middle. That does show you your gearing and stuff like that, and your range, but every time you trigger the blind spot warning or the lane departure warning, it does show up with a little light on the dashboard just to remind you to check your blind spot or your lanes or stuff like that. So it does really have a safety sense about it, which is nice about this car. And with all these airbags and the technology in it, it does like to keep you safe. Speaking of feeling in control, you actually have this nice big Citroen steering wheel in front of you with solid thumb grips and a little bit of a flat bottom there, so it has got a sporty bend to it if you like. Your shortcut buttons are on here, these on the left for the infotainment, and then on the right there to flick up some more information on there. It's all really neatly laid out actually, and you've got your little cruise control stalk on the side there just to make things crystal clear. Before we go and do a drive as we normally would at this point, let me just jump in the back there and see how much space there is. Well, space in the back here, as you can see, is really decent. This seat over here is set up as far back as it can go, and I've still got a bit of knee room there, plenty of foot room, and a really good bit of headroom there. And I'm just under 6 feet, so you can sit 2 full-size adults here very comfortably. In terms of things to play with, you've got little pockets behind the seats there. You've got a 12-volt socket over there and a little cubby that rolls back in the middle here. So plenty going on and plenty of color as well. These little gray and black highlights, the contrast stitching. They have really thought about making this a funky car. Speaking of funky, well, it drives pretty interestingly too. So let's take a look at that.
Good old Citroen C3 Aircross. A very, very comfortable and very customizable vehicle, as we said at the outset. I mean, the comfort, let's go through that. I mean, these seats are just amazing. Honestly, you can surrender yourself into them, being as they're French. No, it really is so comfortable. They're really so good on your rear end, and not a huge amount of lateral support, but your bum's gonna just love you for it.
Citroens have always been about ride quality and comfort and all that stuff, and I think they certainly haven't lost that through the years, and this car is an example why. It's not just the suspension setup that's quite soft, but also the fact that these seats have that extra 15 millimeters of foam to just cushion you everywhere you go.
It's just amazing. Then there's the customizable part of this vehicle. I think there's something like 96 different configurations when you take into account the 7 body colors, the 2 2 roof shades and then also the 4 different trim levels. So I think the combination is really, you can make it your own. You can be one in 96 anyway, which is all right.
It's a good idea that they've done that, because one of the reasons that you would go for the C3 Aircross, for example, over its competition is because you want to stand out, and because you want to be because you are a little bit different rather. So it's nice to see that they've gone to town with that idea of customizability.
Yep. The way this vehicle drives, this SUV, because we're going to get pulled up on that, it's just soft. It's the steering's good and really, very positive, but it's just the way that it just sits nicely around the road, around the corners. It's not a sports car. I mean, 0 to 100 in 10 seconds is not really gonna really have you racing anywhere. And also, although it's sort of neat in the corners, it's not hugging, and that's kind of just as well that there's no side bolsters really. So I think you'll be flying around before the car does, though. SUV, sorry.
It has, the good thing about it is because it has that sort of hatchback chassis underpinning it, it does handle pretty well. And when you are really going for it, that 3-cylinder engine note sounds so good.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. It's absolutely off kilter, and it just sounds so good. It sounds very gruff and butch, just like the front bumper actually. It's just very, very masculine, and even though it's a 1.2 3-cylinder,
While the engine note does sound nice when you're giving it the beans, if you like.
All the onions.
All the onions. The downside of that is the fact that getting onto the motorway and getting up to that speed of 100 does require a bit of effort from this engine. And while you're sitting at 100, just because it has six gears to the gearbox, it does rev high when you're on the motorway. So I think we were idling along at 2500 RPM or something. So that is quite high, and it will go through a bit of fuel with that many revs going.
Yeah, agreed. It's efficient around town, not really that efficient when you want to go on for some really long runs, although it is comfortable to go on the long runs. So I don't know, providing you got a fat wallet, you'd be okay. The other thing to talk about is visibility. The big windscreen is good, your ride height is good, mirrors slightly smaller than normal, but you can still see everywhere. And even the back quarter panel, even though it's got that trim on it, you can still see out of it, no problems. And all-round visibility is good.
It does offer that sort of SUV, riding height and stuff like that, without being obnoxiously big or obnoxiously high up. So it is a nice little compact SUV in that way.
Yeah, and literally when you put your foot down, the revs go up quickly, it does catch up nicely, and there's that note again. Lovely. And while we are talking about the 6-speed box, the actual gate on it is rather confusing. It doesn't just go straight forward and straight back like any normal vehicle would do. It's kind of got this weird gate that you sort of flick over to the left and right, and it's a bit like going through some form of I don't know, I was trying to think of something French, but I can't think of anything French. It's just slightly, you wrestle with it a bit, but that's, I guess, part of the French charm, or je ne sais quoi charm and stuff.
It's definitely quirky, I'll give it that, but for the most part quite practical too.
Yeah, it's a good vehicle for around town and also on the longer journeys. So there you have it, the Citroen C3 Aircross. It's a very comfortable, I think we may have said that before, and very customizable SUV. It really does tick all the sort of city boxes. You can make it your own, so you can have your own sort of styling on your driveway, and it's efficient. It's around town. It's I like it. It's just so comfortable. I just want to snuggle up and relax.
It is definitely unique, and you will stand out driving a car like this, especially if you go crazy with the color choices. But in many ways, it's also sensible and practical, dare I say. about a French car.
I mean, even the people in the back, whoever they would be, are comfortable as well. Who'd have thought that I'd care about the people in the back seat? There you go. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Actually, it is down there. I know it is. So, see you on the next one. See ya.